Okay, I have my 2006 F350 with a 6.0 liter, and I got a PO 283. It's my number 8 injector, and the circuit was showing to be high. If it was low, it could be a connection problem, but this thing kept recurring, so I know that I've got an injector problem here. And as it works, the odds over on the passenger and evens over here on the drivers, and it's just 2, 4, 6, 8, so it's going to be in the back. Now I've already got a few things out. My overflow tank is out. There's just a couple of 8mm up here, and then you got to disconnect your hose here, and then you got this hose going to the radiator, and this one going down. Now I've drained mine out for other reasons, but just keep your hoses up so they're not leaking everywhere when you take that off. The FICM, actually having that worked on, so I had that out of the way, but you just got a couple of these 10s up here and a couple of 8s in the back that you have to get loose, and you'll have a bracket that hooks to this right here as well. But we're going to go ahead, I'm just going to be taking this air box and everything out next, and disconnecting these connectors and working on getting in here. So like I said, we're going to be working on this side. If you're lucky enough that you know, your injector problem is on this side, then it's going to be a lot easier to deal with. If you're having to work from the other side, then it's going to be much more difficult, because you got that HVAC box and stuff sticking out in the way, and it's just, you can get to it, but everything's harder because there's a lot less clearance. So anyways, I'm just going to go ahead and get my negatives disconnected, and we're going to go ahead and work on getting this air box and stuff out next. Okay, and with that air box, we just pry this up and take this loose and go ahead and get this out of the way. Okay, and so we're going to have to get our harnesses up and off here out of the way. We need to go ahead and get this dipstick disconnected. Our brackets are going to have to come off. Our EBT sensor is going to have to come out of the way. And so we got our brackets for our FICM, and we need to go ahead and get them off and just push this here kind of over out of the way a little bit, just to kind of clear up some slack. And it probably wouldn't hurt to go ahead and disconnect our glow plugs here, just to free up a little bit more room, just so we can get our valve cover. So we're just gonna go ahead and work on getting our dipstick, and I think we'll get these brackets off here. Just got some 10mm, and they're not too difficult to get to there. That back nut on that bracket back there will be your most difficult. Just go back there with an extension and get in behind it there. Another thing we're going to do while we're at it, before we take this EBT loose, we're going to go ahead and disconnect this while we're at it and clean this out. It's not a bad idea while you already got this off and you can get to this. Go ahead and take it off and see if it needs to be cleaned out a little bit. I wasn't getting any codes on it, but take a piece of wire or something, weed eater string, whatever, and go through there and kind of make sure that this is not carboned up or anything. So we're going to go ahead and do that as well. Okay, on this EBT, I'm using a 5/8 wrench to hold it and a deep 1-inch socket to get it loose there. Okay, I may in fact have to take this entire line off. You can see in there, it's just all carboned up, and this here is going to have to be cleaned pretty good as well. But I mean, that's all there is to that. But we got to get something in there. I think I'm going to use some weed eater string or something and see if I can clean through it pretty good. If not, I may have to go ahead and take it loose from the exhaust manifold. I don't like doing that because sometimes they don't want to come loose, and they're pretty difficult, or you can mess them up, so we'll see what happens. Okay, so I just took some weed eater string and you know, ran a pretty good length where I was confident that I got all the way through it, and I was just using that and a little bit of lubricant, and then I took and blowed it out a little bit with some air. So as far as the sensor, I just took a little tiny screwdriver and cleaned all the carbon out of that. So that's all we're going to do with that. So I was surprised I wasn't getting any code or anything for it. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and take it loose right here now and just carefully move it back a little bit and get our brackets. Just don't bend it or anything. Okay, now we can just take these brackets, and I've got mine just marked so I don't get them confused, and just, you know, pay attention to where they go so you're not getting them mixed up and wasting any time putting it back together. So just make a mental note or mark it as to where it goes, and basically it's just the ones with the studs there. And we'll go ahead and get this back one here out of the way. So these 10 millimeters may seize, and you may just pull the whole, unloosen the whole stud, which it doesn't really matter. Just make sure to keep up with all your little nuts and bolts and stuff. So we should be at this point where we can go ahead and get our 12s all around the perimeter here. Now, just like I said, keep up as to where their location is, or take a picture so you put them back to where they go, so it just makes things quicker going back together. And other than that, it's not really a big deal. But this wire, like I said, just shove it over here out of the way, just to where we can get our get to our valve cover here, and that's all we need to do with that. So we're going to go ahead and get all these loose and get our valve cover off. Okay, so we're getting ready to lift this valve cover off here, and I just kind of left the stud bolts where they go, so I know the location. So we're just going to carefully, now the one in the very back is going to be the most difficult back there. I used a 12 millimeter ratchet wrench on that one right there. Okay, now that's a 12 millimeter. I'm just taking this standpipe piece over here loose before I go about taking my oil rail. Okay, I guess that's like a 2-piece. Now, if yours haven't been updated, these will be 10s, I believe, 10 millimeters. I'm just going to set this aside. We've got a T30. We're just going to go through here and get all of these out. Don't remember the torque spec right off the top of my head, but when you put these back, make sure to not over tighten these things, and I'll get that. So we're just going to go ahead and take all these that are around the perimeter of our oil rail here, and we'll go ahead and get this out next. Okay, and with our T30s out, we just lift that off there nice and straight. Even pressure on both ends. And right back there is our number 8. And we're going to work on getting that one out. Now, there's a clip up there. You'll notice these right here. All you do is grab a hold of it with one hand, push up with a screwdriver, don't lose it, and you can just pop it completely off or whatever. I just take them completely off and then just pop it back on afterwards, so it'll slip off of there. But I'm gonna have to get to that one right back there, and we'll get that clip out and work on getting this injector out of here once we get that. Now we'll also use a I use an 8 millimeter socket to push down on the tabs after I get that clip off, just so this part here will slip through. And there's that clip I popped off there with the screwdriver. Okay, now so we can just lift that back connector. We can just lift that off there. Now like I said, we're going to get back there with a socket so we can get this wire pushed through. Okay, so we just got us a 18 millimeter, just like that. And we're going to go back in here and push on the back side of that, where you can't really see, but I'm going to be pushing right down on there, and it'll slip it through once you get them tabs pushed down. Okay, and there's that pushed through. Now we're going to get our long shank Torx and get this injector out. Okay, this is a T40. It has a 3-inch shank. You have to use one of these or you'll damage those bolts, and it's not going to come out of there right, or you're not going to be able to get it torqued back properly. So we're going to go back in here, and I'll probably need to use a little bit of a cheater bar because these were 26 foot-pounds. I think I actually go 27, but we're going to go ahead and take that loose and just pull the whole thing and the clamp up and out of there. Okay, there we have it completely loose, and we should be able to get in here and grab them both together. And there we are. These copper washers are a one-time use, so if you have a mishap, make sure when you replace it that you put a new copper washer on there. Now the bad thing is I done put new seals and everything on these. Didn't know that I had a bad one, but that's just how it goes. So we're going to go ahead and get our new injector and go ahead and get it put back in. Like I said, I'm going to go, it calls 26, I'm going to go 27. Just a little extra peace of mind. Okay, and here is our new injector, and I actually purchased this off of eBay. However, I will say that it's much cheaper to get a full set than it is to get them one at a time. I know that one particular site I'd looked at, I think it was Warren Diesel or something, had a full set for like less than $800 for the stock injectors. So this one was just almost $200 for one. So, but it's got a good warranty on it, and looks like they put all new wires. It's all new seals. These solenoids up here, which I think that from what I've researched, that's what the problem is with the old one, is this particular piece right here, the solenoid. So all new seals, copper washer. I'm going to put a light coating of oil on my seals, just a dab, and same for this seal in here, which is, you know, important seal, because when I slip that oil rail back in there, I want to make sure that it goes slips in there nice. So other than that, we're just going to go ahead and get it slipped back into place. So we'll put our clamp here on here first, and we'll slip it back in together. Okay, so we're just slipping it back down in there with a clamp on there, just like that. So we're going to go ahead and go back into our spot here. Okay, and once you get it back in there, just go ahead and start tightening it down, and just get it kind of snug. And we'll go ahead and get our torque wrench over here next, and go ahead and get our torque and get it down to 27. I'm going to go 27. Said it calls for 26, but I'm going to go 27 on mine. So it's really pretty simple. The only thing we got to do here is just slip that back in there. Just make sure that that's pointed up like that. and just pop it back up into place. And that's pretty simple there, and you can tell when you get it locked back. So anyways, go ahead and get the torque wrench over here, and we're going to torque this down. And so I don't know if I was showing you this, but you can see where the long shank, where you have to have this because of the clearance there. And that's got a 3-inch shank on it. That's a T40. So you need one of those. So we'll go ahead and get our torque wrench over here and get this torqued down next. Okay, and here we are just torquing it down. Not a whole lot of room, but you've got enough room to get it torqued. So we'll go ahead and do this, and then we'll go ahead and work on getting our oil rail back on here. I said the biggest thing with it, we want to make sure that we don't move those. We want to set it on nice and straight. We're going to go down nice and straight as possible as we can back onto our injectors. I said on your wire, make sure that you do have that seated fully before you go to putting your oil rail on. You can tell it when it pops in there, and you will not be able to pull it back out. Okay, make sure to keep your oil rail straight. Make sure that it's fully popped down and seated before you go to tightening, or you can get leaks. So we're going to go ahead now and just get our T30s and get those all around the perimeter here. Okay, so we're going 120 inch on the oil rail on those T30s, and this is the sequence that they call for if you want to use that. Basically, I just always kind of zigzag, but that's the sequence that they call for. The 120 inch or 10 foot, I'm using my inch pound. It's more accurate, so we're going to go ahead and get the torquing on these. Okay, so I've just went back and double checked. Just, definitely make sure that you get, you double check everything. Take your time. Don't want to have to pull this stuff apart again. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and torque this back down. I'm going to get my 12 millimeter there. We're going to get that torque back. Okay, and once we've got that snug down, we've just set this to 60 foot-pounds, and we're going to go ahead and torque this. Okay, right now I'm going to go ahead and put my clip back on my little wire connector back there so I can get that snap back on. Okay, and just make sure you got that seated and snapped in there fully, that it's not going to come off. So at this point, we're ready to go ahead and get our valve cover back on here. And then we'll make sure to put our EBT sensor back into place there. Okay, and here's where these stud locations are. And it's not a bad idea to put you a mark so you know where to put those back to. All the other ones are just short. Okay, and I'm just snugging this up with a little 3/8 ratchet, and I don't get these real tight. They're just little M6 metric bolts, and it's really easy to strip that aluminum out on there. So I wouldn't torque them down more than probably 108 inch-pounds if you did torque it, or less. So the gasket will do its job. If you strip those, then you're going to have more problems. So go ahead and get our dipstick back on here, and now I'm just getting ready to get these brackets back into place. So one's going to go back there and one here. So the one with the threaded holes is going to go into the back, just like that, and then we'll get our 10 millimeter nuts onto that, and then the one with the studs is going to go right up here. And like I said, it's also got the little spot for your EBT. So we're just going to go ahead and get our brackets into place, and we'll get our nuts back on here. We got 4 that go in our brackets, and one 10 millimeter right here, and then we got one that goes right here to put that EBT tube that we took loose. So we'll go ahead and do that next. Okay, and the more difficult one's the one in the very back, and you have to kind of reach around with your left hand or something to get to that one. So we'll go ahead and snug these 10 millimeters up, and then we're going to get our EBT sensor back on. Okay, just got the EBT fastened back down. We're going to get our wire back over here. Also, went ahead and connected the glow plug harness. I want to show you on this FICM, when you take these loose, you have to actually squeeze on both sides to be able to disconnect these. And of course the back one, like with everything else, is the most difficult, but you have to be able to squeeze from both sides to get that disconnected. So this is all I can do. Like I said, I've got to get my FICM put back in here, and it's being worked on. So I'm just going to leave it as it is here for now until I get that back in, and then I'll get all my air cleaner and everything back into place. But really wasn't too bad. I don't even think I've spent a couple hours on this. Of course, I had this overflow tank out and my FICM, but which those are really not a very big deal. So not a very bad job. The only thing I have left, like I said, is to get my FICM on there, and I'll put my air cleaner back in and get my overflow tank back in here, and that's it. And we'll, that should fix everything up, I hope. That was a recurring code, so hopefully that's the last issue that I'm gonna have with this truck. But like I said, stuff keeps popping up the more I drive it, so we'll see what happens. But anyways, hopefully that's been helpful, and give you an idea what it's like to replace that injector. Like I said, if you do the other side, it's definitely going to be more difficult because you got less room back over there. So anyways, well, thank y'all for watching.